evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. Virginians are voting today in an unexpectedly close race for governor. It carries national implications for both Republicans and Democrats ahead of next year's midterm elections. The CDC votes unanimously to recommend the Pfizer vaccine for kids aged 5 to 11. The White House says it already has enough doses to vaccinate every child in that age group in America. A group at the nation's capital today in front of the Supreme Court demanding transparency about COVID-19 vaccine risks. We hear from some among the group. In the coming weeks, Facebook plans to drop facial recognition from its app. The tech company says it will delete over 1 billion face templates. The 2021 U.S. Capitol Christmas tree is on its journey across the nation. This year's tree comes from California and will arrive in Washington, D.C. later this month. Today is Election Day. As voters across the nation head to the polls, the unexpectedly close race for Virginia governor is drawing national attention.
The governor's race in Virginia is currently a dead heat. At a polling place in Fairfax County, Northern Virginia, school policies have become a decisive factor for many voters.
I voted for Youngkin today, and I voted for him because he's taken a stand against CRT, which I think it's a very, very significant issue for our country and our state.
So I voted for the Democrats because I know they're not teaching that, and that's a myth that they're tricking people with.
The big issue, I think, is parents participating in the, the learning, what our kids are learning.
In recent opinion polls, Democrat candidate Terry McAuliffe has seen his lead over Republican businessman Glenn Youngkin evaporate. Youngkin is a former private equity CEO and a political newcomer. He promises voters he will cut taxes, increase the number of charter schools, and remove critical race theory from school curricula. McAuliffe, the former governor of Virginia, has been promoting his ideas to spark job creation and economic recovery.
Governor McAuliffe has done a great job in his previous term, and a businessman has no clue how to run a government.
However, some voters who are dissatisfied with the current economic situation cast their votes for Youngkin, expecting him to bring positive change.
I think everything is very expensive right now. Construction items are 3-4 times more than used to be, gasoline.
This election is seen as a bellwether of next year's midterm elections. Virginia has been trending blue for over a decade. If Youngkin could reverse that trend, it would sound alarm bells for Democrats nationally. And early voting numbers in Virginia have hit record highs ahead of Election Day. According to data from the Virginia Public Access Project, 1/5 of Virginia's 5.9 million registered voters, over 1 million people, have cast early ballots. That's about 6 times more than in 2017.
Voting is underway for the next governor of New Jersey. Incumbent Democratic Governor Phil Murphy is running against Republican Jack Ciattarelli. NTD's Jason Perry went to Jersey City to see what residents think are the most important issues.
Some New Jerseyans stopped and talked to us after they voted. Educational opportunities were one of their top concerns.
It all starts with education, so Board of Education vote today is important to make sure that folks learning, growing up, are having equal opportunities to attend higher universities.
I don't think that all children should be piled up in one place or go to a specialized high school in order for them to get a great education. I think that a great education should be across the board, and hoping that New Jersey does the same.
Others didn't like the way Jersey City is being developed.
There was going to be a veteran housing downtown, and then it turned out to be condos. They just took off the sign, and then new condos coming up.
I used to have parking where I live, and they told us a couple of months ago that they were going to build a condo in that spot instead. Then there's a municipal parking lot across the street from where I live. I was told, I said, oh, well, let me park there. No, they're making that into condos as well.
The people we spoke to right outside of this polling place in Jersey City all had different opinions about what they think is best going forward for New Jersey, but they all agreed that it's important to vote. Now they'll all be waiting to see who will be the next governor of New Jersey. Jason Perry, NTD News, New Jersey.
And in the Big Apple, people aren't voting for their governor, but for a new mayor. One of the candidates ran into issues, though, when he tried to cast his vote. NTD's Arian Pazdar was on site.
If you're in New York City, today's the day. Voting sites are open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. So now it's up to the 5.5 million voters to decide a winner. Although many are registered to vote, voter turnout has been going down drastically over the past 70 years. Most people in New York City don't vote in the mayoral election. But Democratic candidate Eric Adams voted. He showed up bright and early at 7:30 a.m. to cast his vote. He carried a picture of his late mother, who recently passed away. He got a little emotional during his press conference, but made it clear that the city has to emerge from the pandemic.
COVID has devastated us. People are wondering where their next rent will come from. Unemployment, businesses have closed.
His opponent, Republican Curtis Sliwa, came to the voting site with a rescue cat. I asked him what's the first thing he would do as mayor.
Well, the first thing is to roll back the mandates, rehire all the heroes, the cops, firefighters, sanitation men, especially healthcare workers and teachers, give them their back pay.
At the voting site, the president of the Board of Elections approached Sliwa, asking him to take off his jacket because it might influence people's voting decisions.
Well, you have to have me arrested. It'll be my 77th arrest. Okay. So give it to the cops, okay?
Sliwa didn't take off his jacket.
He's not allowed, it's state law, he's not allowed to wear campaign material.
When Sliwa finally cast his vote, the machine malfunctioned and his ballot got stuck. He says that's a much bigger problem than the jacket.
I would think this is the bigger issue. He's more concerned with this.
The Board of Elections told me the machines have a lifespan of 7 to 8 years, but this one is 10 years old. New Yorkers I spoke with had no problem with the voting process, but they did share one common concern.
Yeah, like people getting stabbed in the subways.
You know, people being shot everywhere.
We need to get back to where we were before this current mayor, you know, with Bloomberg and Giuliani, where the streets are safer.
The new mayor will take office in January. If Adams wins, he'd only be the second black mayor in the history of New York City. And if Sliwa wins, he'd be the first Republican since Bloomberg. Arian Pazdar, NTD News, New York.
And today, residents of Minneapolis are voting on whether or not to replace the city's police department with a Department of Public Safety. Ballot proposal number 2 evolved from calls to defund the police after the May 2020 death of George Floyd. Supporters say the new department would take a public health approach to safety, reduce excessive police force, and turn the focus to prevention. Opponents say the proposal is vague and lacks a clear plan to move forward. The vote comes as violent crime in Minneapolis is spiking. Residents living in high crime areas fear a decrease in police will leave them even more vulnerable. The Minneapolis Police Department is currently down nearly 300 officers, 1/3 below its authorized maximum of nearly 900. Many officers quit, retired, or went on disability leave for PTSD following the rioting and looting that happened after Floyd's death last year. And a CDC panel of 14 advisors has unanimously voted to recommend the Pfizer vaccine for kids 5 to 11 years old. The vaccine will start to roll out after the CDC director, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, officially signs off on the recommendation. Here are the details.
The FDA has authorized emergency use of the Pfizer vaccine for that age group last Friday. Pfizer told the FDA that its clinical trials showed the vaccine is 90.7% effective for that age group. The kids' dose will be 1/3 of the amount of the dose for people aged 12 and up.
We have a total of 14 yeses, 0 nos, and so the motion passes, and the interim recommendation is now a recommendation by the ACIP.
According to a Kaiser Family Foundation survey released last Thursday, almost 70% of parents say they would not get their 5 to 11-year-olds vaccinated right away. Around 30% say they definitely won't vaccinate their 5 to 11-year-olds. People who spoke during the public commentary session of the CDC meeting showed concerns about vaccinating young children.
You know that if you make this general recommendation for all children, it will be viewed as a mandate for all children ages 5 to 11. You can say no. The science does not support this as safe or effective in preventing serious complications or death. Please use your critical thinking, your wisdom, your experience, and be brave. Admit that this data does not support injecting perfectly healthy children.
The Biden administration has been making plans to vaccinate as many children as quickly as possible, as soon as the vaccine is authorized.
Thanks to the president's actions, we've secured enough vaccine for all 28 million kids ages 5 through 11.
Pfizer is already shipping millions of doses for children to facilities and distribution centers across the country. Allison Lee, NTD News.
Folks from around the nation are calling on the government to be more transparent about the possible health risks of taking the COVID-19 vaccine. Today, right outside of the Supreme Court, we hear about health issues some of those folks experienced after they got the shot. NTD's Melina Weiskup reports.
People from all over the states gathered here at the Supreme Court with a unified message. The vaccine does have risks that aren't being publicly disclosed. And where there's a risk, there should be a choice.
I want to say that we are in a spiritual war.
My hands still shake. I had autonomic dysfunctions, so my kidneys quit working. I was having cardiac issues. My GI system, I was not digesting food properly. I would have vaccinated my children. And the reason why I would have vaccinated my children is because I trusted in the process. I believed in the science that was behind it.
And her trust was shaken from the experience. None of the health issues she experienced were on the consent form. She started a Facebook group to bring people together who experienced health issues after having the shot. Dobbs says the group quickly grew by the thousands.
My stepmom, 15 minutes after she received her second vaccine, it was the Pfizer BioNTech, she immediately had breathing problems and heart problems that weren't resolved until after surgery. And so, in fact, the doctor at the Mayo Clinic in Florida told her, don't get the booster.
He also experienced problems himself. Once a vaccine advocate, he had a change of heart after testing positive just 3 days after getting the shot.
5 days later, after they treated me, I crashed and ended up in the ICU with my lungs full of pulmonary embolisms, double pneumonia, and had 3 broken ribs from coughing.
His doctor prescribed him ivermectin, but he was rejected at the pharmacy. And just before the event, Senator Ron Johnson held a roundtable discussion to hear stories from those who have been injured by the vaccine and get input from medical experts. An event he says he shouldn't have to hold if the healthcare agencies were following their own safety standards.
But they haven't been. They have not been honest with the American public. They haven't been transparent.
Why do you think that is?
For whatever reason, there's a policy that's been decided on that we're going to try and end this pandemic with vaccines and vaccines alone. I mean, I certainly hoped it would have been 100% effective, 100% safe, but we're seeing that it's not. But I think the Biden administration, the members of the healthcare agencies, they don't want to admit they're wrong. I mean, the loss of freedom, the corruption of science, the corruption of our healthcare industries and agencies.
He's now working on legislation to combat vaccine mandates and the lack of transparency.
The media, the government are hiding the truth about how many people have been injured by the vaccine. This is not something that people should just take, and people need to get over fear. There's too much fear, and fear is a controlling factor, and it's being used to control our country.
This group encourages folks around the nation to speak up if they've been injured from the vaccine and hold the healthcare system and government accountable. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
About a quarter of New York City firefighters are unvaccinated. That's according to the mayor. This while thousands of firefighters in the city called in sick on Monday when the vaccine mandate for city employees went into effect. NTD's Kevin Hogan has more on the dynamics between the FDNY commissioner, the mayor, and the firefighters union.
2,500 firefighters in New York City are unvaccinated. Mayor Bill de Blasio said the city has a number of them who have requested a religious or medical exemption. At the same time, about 2,300 of the city's firefighters called out sick on Monday. That was the deadline, forcing municipal employees to get the shot. De Blasio spoke to CNN about more firefighters calling out sick than usual.
I don't like what I'm seeing. Our fire commissioner doesn't like what he's seeing, and it's not right. If you're not sick, get to work, protect your fellow New Yorkers, be there for your fellow firefighters, stop playing this game.
Normally, about 800 to 1,000 FDNY employees call out sick on a given day. That's according to Commissioner Daniel Nigro. Nigro told CNN, once the members come to their senses and stop using medical leave improperly, they can help out not only the citizens of the city, but their brothers and sisters who are staffing these units. Yet an FDNY union official said the mandate is causing many firefighters to leave the department. The FDNY Firefighters Association president is Andrew Ansbro. He said the mayor's mandate is going to cause the remaining firefighters to have to work until the breaking point. That's so they can make up for the staffing shortage. Ansbro said the union is not anti-vaccine, but is anti-mandate. And he said many of the firefighters who did get the vaccine over the weekend to comply are experiencing adverse reactions, thus the unusually high number of them calling in sick. Ansbro had said de Blasio's mandate would cause response times to spike and send the city into chaos, though the mayor maintains that the mandate has not caused service disruptions to the NYPD nor FDNY. Kevin Hogan, NTD News, New York.
November 1st is the deadline for San Francisco city employees to be vaccinated. According to the city's mayor, about 3% of their workforce remains unvaccinated. About 90 of them are public transit operators, which raises concerns of possible disruptions. NTD's Jason Blair has the story.
As of November 1st, employees for the city of San Francisco who are not vaccinated will lose their jobs. This applies to police officers, firefighters, and also operators for the city's public transit service, Muni.
Our transit operators, the bloodline that gives life to this city, because without us, nobody goes to work, school, church, shopping, their doctor's office, etc.
Roger Marenko is the president of the Transport Workers Union Local 250A, the group that represents the city's Muni workers. He said he's glad to see the vaccination numbers have gone up and more employees can keep their jobs. However, there are about 90 operators that have yet to get the shot. The situation hasn't been easy, especially with all the other stresses operators have on a daily basis.
For our operators to have to be subjected to a forced mandated vaccination policy is just another burden on them. So it's been tough, it's been difficult.
The city of San Francisco announced a vaccine requirement in July, including the 90 Muni operators. The city's mayor said on Friday that a total of 836 employees out of 35,000 have yet to be vaccinated. The San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency stated last month that they do expect there to be noticeable service disruptions starting November 1st. Jason Blair, NTD News, San Francisco.
President Biden is predicting that the Democrats will win Virginia's gubernatorial race. He held a press conference while attending the climate summit in Scotland. Let's take a look at what reporters asked him.
President Biden at the COP26 climate conference in Scotland answered reporters' questions on a range of issues. A reporter from the Wall Street Journal asked him about the Virginia gubernatorial race.
Democrat Terry McAuliffe is struggling in a state that you won by 10 points. Do you see his problems as a rebuke of your presidency? And could this signal your real losses for Democrats in the midterms?
We're going to win. I think we're going to win in Virginia. And you know, you're reporting it being close. The race is very close. So it's about who shows up, who turns out. And granted, I did win by a large margin. But the point of the matter is that I think that this is going to be, we all knew from the beginning, this is going to be a tight race. And it is tight. And it's going to get down to turnout. And it's going to, my guess is I'm going to be landing at 1 o'clock in the morning East Coast time. That's probably about the time we'll be hearing what the final results are. I think we're going to win New Jersey as well.
Another reporter asked Biden about rising inflation.
Inflation in the U.S. is at a 13-year high. So when specifically should Americans expect those prices to come down?
Well, look, first of all, the significant reason why prices are up is because of COVID affecting the supply chain. I mean, I know I'm not trying to be instructive. I know you know this. Number one. Number two, if you take a look at, gas prices and you take a look at oil prices, that is a consequence of, thus far, the refusal of Russia or the OPEC nations to pump more oil.
A different reporter asked Biden whether he thinks the potential for armed conflict with China has grown over the course of his first 10 months in office.
With regard to the more profound question about am I worried about an armed conflict or some that accidentally occurring with China? No, I'm not. But I've made it clear. This is competition. It does not have to be conflict. There is no reason there need be conflict.
Biden will return to the U.S. early Wednesday morning, and the climate conference will run until November 12th.
Yahoo says it's completely pulled out of China, and it's not the first well-known company to do so. An expert says it may not be the last. NTD's Evelyn Lee has the details.
Yahoo just stopped all its remaining online services in China Monday. A spokesperson says it's because the increasing challenging business and legal environment in China. On the same date, China's personal information protection law went into effect.
In China, it's just getting very, very hard for companies like Yahoo or LinkedIn to maintain a presence because their business model depends on streams of information that come from data providers, news providers, users.
LinkedIn also recently decided to shut down operations in China. It says it was facing a significantly more challenging operating environment and greater compliance requirements. Core says just recently Chinese officials asked the company to remove people from the Chinese version of its website.
It's not feasible from a just pure profit perspective to be operating in China anymore for some of these companies, especially if they are going to be hit with huge fines for improperly censoring their own content.
And because of it, he says there is a very high likelihood that there will be increasing decoupling from the West. China's clampdown on tech companies wiped away trillions and then it tightened gaming regulations. Now Epic Games is shutting down Fortnite in China.
It's been proven time and time again in history that communist approaches to economics, command economic approaches, just don't work. They drive out capital. They decrease the efficiency of the production process.
Core says he doesn't think the Chinese regime wants to have a closed economy, but it's going in that direction because Chinese leaders think they have more control over the economy than they can possibly have. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
Up next, customers come together to support a baker couple who were diagnosed with cancer. The fundraising effort has already reached nearly $100,000. And the 2021 U.S. Capitol Christmas tree is on its journey across the nation. This year's tree originates from California and will arrive in Washington, D.C. later this month. That and more when we return here on NTD News. In Philadelphia, customers gathered to support a local bakery. The business had to close its doors after the two who run it were both diagnosed with cancer. NTD's Shen Yun has the story.
Miss Rachel's pantry is alive with food, drinks, and music. On Monday, customers and friends hosted a cocktail party to raise funds for the artisan boulangerie bakery. The business closed after owners Amanda Yip and Andre Chin were both diagnosed with cancer.
I shocked. I was crying. I couldn't speak. I couldn't say nothing.
That's when customers stepped in and organized a fundraising event. Friends also made a GoFundMe page for the couple, which has already raised nearly $100,000.
We were all concerned about them because they both could not operate their business because of their health issues.
Why did customers do all this?
I could tell you why. Everybody, they love Amanda and Andre. They're such good people. Beside being excellent bakers.
It's just they're so kind and they're humorous and they introduce me to different things in the world I wouldn't see normally.
You can see them working every single day, working their butts off, and they put everything that they have into their work, and they're just wonderful, dedicated people.
Yep said she was surprised by the support from the community.
I never thought a lot of people love me that much, you know.
Andre Chin was too weak to be interviewed. Shen Yun, NTD News.
And this year, the 2021 U.S. Capitol Christmas tree hails from California. The tree is now on its way from its home on the West Coast to the nation's capital. NTD's Cynthia Kai spoke with a representative traveling with the tree to learn more about the tree's origins.
Standing at 84 feet tall, a white fir tree nicknamed Sugar Bear has been chosen to be the 2021 U.S. Capitol Christmas tree. Sugar Bear is originally from the Six Rivers National Forest, located in the northwestern corner of California. It is now on a 3,500-mile journey to the nation's capital. The massive tree has been carefully wrapped on an elongated trailer bed for transportation. A giant plastic pouch will keep the tree hydrated throughout its journey.
Something that was important to us at the Six Rivers was, especially given the historic fire seasons of the last 2 years, we specifically and deliberately chose a tree in an overgrown area that needed to be thinned out anyway. That helps with fire prevention. That helps with, healthier forests.
Riho explained that Sugar Bear comes from an area damaged in the 2020 August complex fire. She says the tree represents the strength and resilience of Californians. Sugar Bear received its name from the early days when the U.S. Forest Service was selecting trees. The first candidate was from the Grizzly Mountain and named Grizzly Bear. Top candidates were then all given bear-related names to identify the trees during the selection process.
So Grizzly Bear was the first one, Mama Bear, Papa Bear, Baby Bear, because they were all kind of within the same area, and then Honey Bear and Sugar Bear. So we had 6 candidate trees that we presented to the architect of the Capitol in July.
In the end, Sugar Bear was chosen for its skinny conical shape and smaller tree skirt. The tradition of the Capitol Christmas tree began in 1964, when House Speaker John McCormick placed a live Christmas tree on the Capitol lawn. That tree lived 3 years before succumbing to wind and root damage. In 1970, the U.S. Forest Service began the tradition of selecting trees.
This is the 51st year that the Forest Service has had the opportunity to select a national forest to be the one that provides the 2021 People's Tree.
Tree decorations are handmade by kids from the state the tree originated from, thus giving it the name the People's Tree. Sugar Bear will arrive in Washington, D.C. on November 19th and stand on the west front lawn of Capitol Hill throughout the holiday season. Cynthia Kai, NTD News, California.
Coming up, a large number of Beijing residents are not allowed to return after leaving the city. Meanwhile, China's Civil Aviation Administration has reduced around 97% of international flights compared to pre-pandemic levels. And there may be more tariffs on China's exports after over 30 countries reportedly ended a preferential trading practice with China. More in just a moment here on NTD News.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
You worked hard for your money. You invest in stability for your retirement and your family's future, to build and leave them with something greater. The next unprecedented financial crisis, political misstep, or unstable government can depreciate it all away. It was called the gold standard for a reason, the financial preservation of tomorrow. Diversify your assets against inflation, market volatility, and the unknown with real money. Hedge your wealth with the purest form of money, physical gold and silver. Because any currency printed on paper can be manipulated. What's backing up your IRA? Do what you need to do right now to be prepared with the Reagan Gold Group. Visit now, rggusakit.com, or call us at 866-912-1384. Receive up to $2,500 in free silver coins and a free safe with your new Precious Metals IRA. Call now.
Now to China. A possible oversight in a new virus control measure is resulting in a large number of Beijing locals being stranded outside Beijing. And China's Civil Aviation Administration is cutting down international flights to just 400 per week. NTD's Evelyn Lee has more.
And now we look to China's capital. Beijing's newly adopted virus prevention and control measure is inadvertently stopping many of its residents from returning home. The measure prohibits anyone who has been in a high or medium virus risk district or community from entering Beijing. It comes during a rise in new virus cases in the capital. But there may be an oversight in the measure. Beijing itself has districts that are labeled as medium risk areas for the virus. What's happening in practice is that many people who live in Beijing cannot return if they leave. One Beijing resident posted his experience on the Chinese social media platform Weibo. I went to Zhengzhou on a business trip and was not allowed to return to Beijing the next day. I called the railway. They said it's because I exited Beijing by taking the train from Beijing West Railway Station. West Railway Station is in Fengtai District. Fengtai District is a medium high-risk area. The new measure is stirring up a lot of discussion on Weibo. Relevant hashtags have more than 17 million views. In fact, so many people have complained about the measure that Beijing municipality authorities issued an apology to those affected. The China Civil Aviation Administration is adopting a new schedule. According to an announcement on Friday, international passenger flights will drop to just over 400 per week. That's even 20% less than that during the pandemic's peak last year. And compared to the flight schedule before the pandemic, just over 2% of flights remain. The change took effect at the end of October and will run till late March. At the same time, domestic flights inside mainland China have seen an over 7% growth compared to the same seasons last year. China greatly reduced its international flights back at the height of the pandemic in March 2020. This embraced a policy saying that one airline company can only fly to one destination in one country once a week. The policy sent ticket prices soaring immediately, and many Chinese people who had been traveling were left stuck outside China. According to U.S.-based international broadcaster Voice of America, the new schedule wants to make sure that Beijing's Winter Olympics in February and Paralympic Games in March will run smoothly. China will likely face new tariffs. At least 32 countries may have ended their trade preference program with China. That's what the Chinese Customs Agency said last week. And we reached out to the foreign trade offices of France, Canada, and the UK, but didn't hear back before airtime. The trade program is called the Generalized System of Preferences, better known as GSP. It's a preferential tariff system that reduces tariffs on various products that will come from developing countries. Or in the U.S.'s case, those products would enter duty-free. The Chinese agency's statement says following the change next month, the regime will stop issuing GSP certificates of origin on products exported to the 27 EU countries, as well as the UK, Canada, Turkey, Ukraine, and Liechtenstein. The document is required by customs authorities to collect tariffs. The agency told Chinese exporters to switch to non-preferential certificates of origin for these countries. This type of certificate is not entitled to lower tariff rates. The GSP trade program was first adopted internationally in 1968. 40 countries had reduced tariffs for China under the program, including EU countries. Under the framework of the World Trade Organization, the program is supposed to encourage economic growth in developing countries by allowing them preferential access to developed country markets. Already being the world's second largest economy, China still insists it's a developing country. If it loses that status, China may face higher tariffs and the removal of other preferential trade treatment. But in recent years, more and more countries ended the GSP trade program with China. That includes Russia, Japan, and Switzerland. And up to now, only Norway, New Zealand, and Australia are still granting China that trade treatment.
A recent video captured in China's Hubei province has scared netizens. It shows two boys jumping back and forth between the rooftops of 27-story buildings. A nearby resident took the video. It shows one boy starting to walk while holding onto a nearby railing. He then took a standing jump position and launched himself towards the narrow roof of another building. After he landed, he staggered, then jumped back again. No visible safety measures were in place. Many Chinese netizens described breaking out in a cold sweat while watching the clip. One even said they were so scared their legs went weak. Coming up, the second day of the COP26 climate summit. Leaders from more than 100 countries agree to end deforestation by 2030. And the U.S. and EU announced that about 100 nations have joined their global methane pledge. President Biden says the countries will work together to collectively reduce methane output by 30% by 2030. Find out more in just a moment here on NTD News. Leaders from more than 100 countries have promised to end deforestation by 2030. These countries cover 85% of the world's forests, including the Amazon. Poor countries will receive funding for land restoration. It's the first major deal in the COP26 climate summit, and the UK says the promises are already backed by over $14 billion in investment. NTD's Earl Rhodes has the story.
Morning, everybody, my fellow leaders, and thank
Boris Johnson has hailed a pledge by more than 100 international leaders to end what he called the Great Chainsaw Massacre of the world's forests. On the second day of the COP26 summit in Glasgow, 110 nations signed a declaration to halt and reverse deforestation and land degradation by 2030. These countries cover 85% of the world's forests, including the Amazon rainforest.
And that means more leaders than ever before have now signed up to protect our forests, from countries in the north and the south with temperate forests, tropical forests, and including nations like China, Russia, Brazil, some of the largest forest estates in the world. And
Downing Street said the pledges have been backed by nearly £9 billion of public funding, with a further over £5 billion in private investment. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos promised £1.5 billion for land restoration in Africa, double what he previously committed just a day earlier at an event with the Prince of Wales. President Joe Biden also announced a new plan to conserve global forests by bringing together the U.S. government's diplomatic, financial and policy tools.
This plan is the first of its kind, taking a whole-of-government approach and working in our case with Congress to deploy up to $9 billion in U.S. funding through 2030 to conserve and restore our forests and mobilize billions more from our partners.
In a video statement to the climate summit, President Vladimir Putin said Russia was relying on its forests to reach the goal of carbon neutrality by 2060.
We take the strongest and most vigorous measures to conserve it. We improve forest management and fight illegal logging and forest fires. We are expanding reforestation areas. We have been consistently increasing funding for these purposes.
And a £1.1 billion fund will be established to protect the Congo Basin tropical rainforest, the world's second largest. During the summit, governments of 28 countries also committed to a roadmap for sustainable trade to save tropical forests. In many countries, forests were cut to make way for commercial agricultural products such as palm oil, soya and cocoa. Earl Rhodes, NTD News.
The United States and the European Union today announced at COP26 that about 100 nations have joined their global methane pledge. They have committed themselves to cut emissions of the potent greenhouse gas methane as part of efforts to contain global warming. Analysts say fixing leaky oil and gas infrastructure is the fastest and cheapest way to curb methane emissions. We've got more from NTD's Neil Woodrow.
So together, we're committing to collectively reduce our methane by 30% by 2030, and I think we could probably go beyond that.
Methane has a higher heat-trapping potential than CO2, but breaks down in the atmosphere faster. That means that cutting methane could have a rapid impact on reining in global warming.
So cutting back on methane emissions is one of the most effective things we can do to reduce near-term global warming and keep 1.5 degrees Celsius. It is the lowest hanging fruit.
Analysts say fixing leaky oil and gas infrastructure is the fastest and cheapest way to curb methane emissions. Tackling methane could also be an opportunity to grow jobs.
This isn't just something we have to do to protect the environment and our future. It's an enormous opportunity for all of us, all of our nations, to create jobs and make meeting climate goals a core part of our global economic recovery as well.
Almost 100 countries have joined the pact. A UN report in May said steep cuts in methane emissions this decade could avoid nearly 0.3 degrees Celsius of global warming by the 2040s.
The United States is eager to work with each of you to make sure we meet this goal and encourage more countries to join us in committing to reducing methane globally, because there are more that can join and should.
The pledge, first announced in September, now includes half of the top 30 methane emitters, accounting for 2/3 of the global economy. Top 5 methane emitters, China, Russia and India, have not signed up. Neil Woodrow, NTD News.
At the launch of the Global Methane Pledge today, President Biden said it's a game-changing commitment. NTD's Jane Werrell is in Glasgow and has more on that for us.
We've been hearing a lot about cutting carbon emissions, but now we're hearing more about methane. The Global Methane Agreement is seen as one of the most significant agreements made here at COP26 so far. It's a pledge to cut methane by 30% by 2030. It'll be interesting there to see how many countries actually follow this through. That's because it's a collective global goal. US climate envoy John Kerry has said that countries won't be getting individual percentage goals, and it's also not legally binding. But there will be pressure on countries to take action, though, especially with the recently launched observatory that will be monitoring their commitments. At the launch, we heard John Kerry say that 105 countries had committed towards the 30% goal, and he wants more to join. But as we heard from the previous report, major emitters like China, India and Russia are yet to join. Jane Werrell, NTD News in Glasgow.
Meta, formerly known as Facebook, announced today that it will no longer use facial recognition on its app beginning in the coming weeks. NTD's David Lamb reports.
Facial recognition is exactly what it sounds like. It's software that recognizes faces. It finds a face shown by the white squares and compares it to other photos and videos of the same person. Now, in a statement released on Tuesday, Meta, or formerly known as Facebook, announced that it is shutting down its face recognition system in the coming weeks.
The company says it will delete more than 1 billion people's individual facial templates. This is part of a company-wide move to limit the use of face recognition in their products. According to the statement, more than 1/3 of Facebook's daily active users have opted in to its face recognition setting. The VP of Artificial Intelligence stated they need to weigh the positive use cases against growing societal concerns, especially as regulators have yet to provide clear rules. At the annual Technology Web Summit on Monday, an executive said the company is moving towards transparency.
At least for us at Meta, it is that I think that this will accelerate more transparency, including over algorithms, more research, including about kids online, and more regulation.
This comes as Facebook was under fire after whistleblower Frances Haugen and Sophie Zhang spoke up about ethical concerns at the company.
One of the VPs said this will represent one of the largest shifts in facial recognition usage in the technology's history. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
Coming up, 2,000 beers tested for taste at this year's Brussels Beer Challenge. 75 self-described beer geeks fly in from around the world to ply the poison. And the cast of Marvel's Eternals talks about what makes them special. And the film's director talks about getting chosen for the project. More on that when we return.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm gonna pass the savings directly on to you. Go to MyPillow.com right now to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. For example, you can get my premium MyPillows, regularly $69.98, now just $29.98, the lowest price ever.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
If you like European beer, or beer in general, then this contest might pique your interest. An international panel in Belgium is getting to work testing almost 2,000 beers. NTD's Arian Pazdar has more.
For most people, 9 a.m. is too early to start drinking. But for competition jurors at the Brussels Beer Challenge, the sooner the better. These experts say the taste buds are unspoiled and the mind is most rested in the morning. That's important as the process of ranking dozens of beers per day requires some concentration. The panel consists of 75 international experts flown into Belgium from as far away as Brazil and the United States.
It's like the Olympic Games for beer. The beers are the athletes, but so are the tasters, as they're tasting about 40 beers a day.
At table 6, a panel of 6 jurors started the day with fruit beers. No easy feat, as the drink's characters vary widely. They're judged by certain criteria, just like what's done at dog shows.
You know, how the dogs have their own breeds, have their own things that they have to kind of be measured against. This is the same sort of thing. These beers are measured by certain styles, so that's what we're looking for.
The tasting happens in semi-silence to avoid distractions. Across the quiet table, Swiss beer importer Jan Emstein said he was also motivated by commercial considerations.
We ask ourselves, would I drink this beer? That's also important. We're beer geeks, we're fans. But at the end of the day, the product has to be drinkable.
The contest is now in its 10th year. It received nearly 4 times as many entrants for the latest event as for the first. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
The latest Marvel movie hits theaters this weekend, featuring a group of heroes who started long before Iron Man, Captain America, and the rest. Let's take a look at Eternals.
We have helped them progress and seen them accomplish wonders.
Eternals have nurtured humanity for 7,000 years.
We have never interfered until now.
Oscar-winning director Chloe Zhao went from indie films to the MCU.
I had to pitch for it, and we both have to look at each other and go, there's something about what you're offering we really want. And that's when I have the project.
Ajak, played by Salma Hayek, leads the team.
I had given up on the hope of Marvel noticing that I existed, and it was just amazing.
The diverse cast includes Lauren Ridloff as the MCU's first deaf superhero.
I love that my deafness is not seen as, a driving point to a story. It's just, it's just an asset.
And Kumail Nanjiani as its first South Asian superhero.
I wanted him to be the opposite of most of the opportunities that I'd gotten and most of the opportunities that brown men have gotten in Hollywood, So usually either we played terrorists, I wanted him to be full of joy, the opposite of that, or we're nerds and I wanted him to be cool, or we're weak and I wanted him to be strong. So I just sort of was like, what is something that I haven't gotten to do that we don't usually get to do? Let's be the opposite of all that.
Between the heroics, we see the friendships, which the cast formed off-screen as well, most of them.
I don't think I was really expecting to come out of this with so many incredible friendships. I mean, I really got to know everyone so well.
Yeah, I made no friends on this movie.
Excuse me?
Apart from you. We became friends.
Yeah,
we became friends.
Okay.
We've loved these people since the day we arrived. When you love something, you protect it.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.
Before you go, here's something you should know. Don't forget you can catch all of NTD's programs on television. NTD Business premieres live Mondays through Fridays at 5 p.m. We broadcast to many of your favorite platforms, Apple TV and Roku, for example. We're also rapidly growing on cable, satellite, and over-the-air all across the United States. Just go to ntd.com/TV, type in your zip code, and find all the ways you can watch NTD.